In 2014, LEGO launched a brand new theme to coincide with their affordable collectible minifigure series. This theme was of course LEGO Mixels and was all about different groups of elemental monsters trying to live together that could actually mix together to form crazily complex combinations. The theme sets were all packaged in small polybags, with each tribe getting 3 characters per wave that could all mix together to form a tribe max, which was an alternate build where instructions could be found on lego.com. The theme lasted from the beginning of 2014 until the end of 2016, giving it essentially a 3-year run. And in this video, I'll be taking a look at everything LEGO Mixels had to offer, from the sets to the characters, the TV show and more, and answering the title question of why did LEGO Mixels fail? So without further ado, what's up LEGO fans, it's LEGO Man Cam, and let's take a look at Series 1, released in March of 2014, where we got the Infernites with Flame, Volk and Zorch, the Cragsters with Creator, Seismo and Shuff, and then the Electroids with Teslo, Zaptor and Velectro. I honestly think this was a pretty strong start to the theme, and I actually own all of these myself, although they're all now totally destroyed. My 2 favorites from this wave though were definitely Velectro, as I love the yellow bush piece he uses as his hair, and then Shuff as well because he just looks pretty goofy. Something interesting with LEGO Mixels is that it was the first theme to introduce a bunch of new eye element printed pieces. We had some ball-shaped ones, some on circular tiles, and even some on minifigure heads themselves, which lead us directly into Series 2. This series brought us the Frosticons, Fangang, and the Flexes, with the characters being Slumbo, Lunk, Fleur, Chomley, Gobber, Jorg, Craw, Tentro, and Bulk. This was another decent wave, and I think Bulk would have to be my favourite here, just because of those really long eyes with the minifigure caps on the end of them. Before we move on to Series 3 though, you may not have realised that LEGO Mixels was the first ever theme to introduce these small ball joint elements, pieces that are still used today in so many sets, particularly small animals and mechs. If you've ever heard people talk about them, they usually call them the Mixels ball joint, and that's why, because they originate from this theme. Let's now move on to Series 3, where we had the Glorp Corp, we had Glomp, Glurt and Torts. From the Spikles, there was Footy, Scorpy and Hoogie. And then lastly, we had the Whiztastics, giving us Mesmo, Magnifo and Wizwaz. My favourite here has to be Scorpy, as he just looks super duper cute. Now, as you can see, the different tribes were sort of all element based, being fire, rock and electricity, and now getting into some more obscure ones like slime and magic. However, these elemental themes would later drastically change. Before we look at Wave 4, let's now take a look at the Mixels TV show, which was a little weird to say the least. Just quickly though, if you have seen a few of my videos and enjoy them, please consider subscribing to help us reach our goal of 40,000. It's the best free thing that you can do to help an independent channel grow. Anyway, unlike LEGO Ninjago or Chima, which were airing at around the same time, Mixels used a more 2D animation style like classic cartoons, and for its first season, episodes went only for about 2 minutes, being what I would call filler episodes. What I mean by this is that on Cartoon Network, which was where the show was airing, Mixels would be used to fill the gaps between other scheduled shows. This meant that the episodes weren't really scheduled for the most part that I remember, but would just appear sort of between shows, and sometimes when you would least expect them. The actual content of the TV show I will get into in a minute, but for now, let's move on to Series 4. These released starting in 2015, and the tribes we had the Orbitons, which were Rocket, Nixput and Nerpnort. We got some Infernites, the same tribe from the first wave, but we had some more of them, being Meltus, Flamezer and Bernard, and then we had the Glowkeys with Globit, Vampos and Boogly. This wave sort of started a trend where we would get an additional 3 characters from a previous tribe, which would actually continue through waves 5 and 6 as well. Although being pretty basic, I think Globit is my favourite here with his giant eye, as well as the fact that these spooky figures actually did glow in the dark. As I mentioned earlier though, this is where the kind of elemental idea of the tribes started to be pushed to its limits, as astronauts or space isn't really an element. Anyway though, let's move on to Wave 5, where we got the Clinkers and Lixers, as well as 3 more Frosticons. We had Gox, Jinky and Camzo, Krog, Chilbo and Snoof, and Spug, Tongue and Tungster. A figure of note here is Tongue, and this is a character that caused a lot of controversy as LEGO directly called him a window licker in some of their promotional material, which is often considered a derogatory term against people with disabilities. LEGO did amend this, but it's always sort of stuck with the character and is something that will probably always be remembered. Otherwise though, I really like the design of Jinky, who looked like one of the biggest Mixels we'd ever gotten. Wave 6 then finished out 2015 with 9 more characters. We had the Weldos and Munchers as our new tribes, and 3 more from the Glorp Corp. We had Cram, Forks and Wuzzo, then Dribble, Gurgle and Slusho, and then Snacks, Burp and Waka Waka. I think both the Weldos and the Munchers are some of the best designed tribes that we've gotten, with Wuzzo looking like a chainsaw and Snacks and Burp being really creative with their part usages. As you can see though, the theme was quickly running out of elemental ideas, as not only were they reusing multiple tribes, but the new ones were stretching the limits too, as we now got a hungry or food tribe, and more importantly, a bunch of construction workers. Before we move on to the theme's final year with 2016, I'll briefly go back to the TV show discussion from earlier. As I was saying, the show's actual content was very childlike, unlike something more of Ninjago or Chima's level, with long overarching stories and plot lines, whereas Mixels was more spare of the moment slice of life episodes that usually featured some kind of disagreement where the Mixels either mixed or maxed and then solved the problem. They were fine for what they were going for, but definitely felt more just like ads for the toys compared to Ninjago or Chima. The show did later change, as they opted for longer episodes with a few longer specials as well, but these were kind of later released as just one-offs to coincide with the final few waves releases, which did have better stories, but ultimately didn't bring a whole lot to the table. Anyway, let's finish out looking at the sets from the final year, being 2016, beginning with Wave 7, which had the MCPD tribe. Yes, that's the Mixel City Police Department, with Cuffs, Busto, and Tickets. There was then the Medievals, with Camelot, Mixadel, and Paladum, and then the Mixies, which were a band. We had Jamsy, Tapsy, and Trumpsy. Now, while the ideas were getting kind of silly now, the actual individual characters were genuinely reaching their peak, in my opinion. The entirety of the Mixies looks so amazing, with Tapsy even featuring an exclusive printed element. The Medievals were also giving us one of our only tastes of LEGO Castle at the time, and at least they weren't reusing tribes anymore. Wave 8 then came along, and we had the MCFD, the Mixel City Fire Department, with Splasho, Aquad, and Hydro. We then had the Pirates, with Sharks, Skullsy, and Loot, and then the Medics, with Sergio, Scrubs, and Tooth. This wave isn't as strong as the previous one in my opinion, although Sharks and Skullsy actually look pretty cool to me, both being pirates, and I remember owning Tooth, although he's smashed into a million pieces somewhere. Before we get to our final wave of sets though, let me discuss something that you're probably thinking I've forgotten about, but I haven't. That is the Nixels. Now, the Nixels were the villains of the series, and you probably never realized, but they're actually in all of these sets. However, they were kept completely hidden until you bought and opened a set. The Nixels were included in 1 figure per tribe. Therefore, we ended up with a total of 9 Nixels per year and 27 Nixels in total. What's super interesting though, is that all of the Nixels from waves 4, 5 and 6 in 2015 could actually connect to the King Nixel, which was available with Wuzzo, to create this giant King Nixel build who actually looks really cool. Another really interesting fact is that a qubit, which was the device that the Mixels would use to actually mix together, was only ever included in 1 set, being Gurgle from Wave 6 and the Glorp Corp tribe. I don't know why they didn't include this piece more times because it was so prevalent in the show, but it was just only included in that one set. And one last piece of trivia, as Wave 9 was the final wave of Mixels that we never saw anymore. However, in the LEGO Movie 2, released in 2019, it was confirmed that this chocolate bar character was actually designed to be a Mixel, but was scrapped because the theme obviously ended. Anyway, let's now finish off with Wave 9 before discussing why exactly the theme failed. This wave gave us the Trashos, Ninjas, and the Newsers, with Gobble, Sweeps, and Compacts. Then we had Cobrax, Spinzer, and Misto, and then Screeno, Camster, and Mike. This was actually a decent wave to finish on, and I think Misto or Camster are my favorites here, and I also love Screeno's little tie that he's wearing. Overall though, that was all of the characters and sets from the theme, totaling a whopping 81 different characters, which could all be customized but also turned into different Max models. Now, while these Maxes don't necessarily have names themselves, I'll show each of them on screen now, but essentially they're just taking elements from all three Tribe Mixels and making a giant character. I think the best one here would either have to be from the Pirates, which looks like a giant pirate ship, or the Ninjas, which is just a really awesome snake looking thing. So now we've looked at all the sets and the TV series, we can begin to answer the question of why did LEGO Mixels fail? However, what I'm going to say is something that I've never really done before, but I'm going to say that this theme wasn't that much of a failure. Getting 3 years and 9 individual waves is a massively substantial feat for a LEGO theme, particularly one with a premise like Mixels. This theme would have been extremely easy to discontinue at any stage, so they must have sold relatively well for LEGO to keep the lights on. In saying that though, I don't think this theme ever actually had the capability to make it as one of LEGO's biggest and bests, but I don't think that's what it ultimately was trying to be. It was very obviously kid focused, and these small sets were a genuinely good addition to the CMF series that were out at the time as well, but it just became quite a lot for people to collect. Where the theme shined though was for kids looking to spend some of their pocket money on a fun little toy. I personally think if the TV show had a little bit more depth to it, it maybe could have been something great, but it just came across as a pretty big commercial to me, with the older characters almost instantly getting replaced with the newer ones whenever they would release. Which of course I understand the point of the show is to sell toys, just like Ninjago or Nexo Knights was, but I think we've been privileged to some really great story-based TV shows, so Mixels was just kind of a curveball thrown in there. In terms of its legacy within the LEGO universe itself, it's actually pretty massive, mainly because of the joint system that it introduced, which is now used on countless new LEGO sets across a number of themes. And without it, I don't think we'd have so many high quality mechs and animal builds today. At the end of the day though, I think Mixels can be described in one word, and that is fun. It had fun sets, fun characters, and a fun little TV show that would have appealed perfectly to its target audience. And at the end of the day, that's really what matters. Could it have gone longer? Sure. But with LEGO running out of ideas very quickly, the fact that the theme lasted 3 years and 9 waves is a pretty big accomplishment. With that being said though, let me know in the comments what your thoughts were on LEGO Mixels. Did you like the theme and did you own any of the sets? And please subscribe to help us reach 40,000 and I'll see you in the next one.